The sky over Houston turned bright at noon. Not the usual bright of a sunny day, but an unnatural glow that made people stop and look up. The Vexarian ship broke through the clouds, a massive structure shaped like a smooth oval, glimmering blue and silver in the sunlight. Captain Liam Carter stood on the landing pad, his heart beating fast under his crisp uniform. At 42, with short brown hair starting to gray at the temples, Liam had spent 20 years in the Earth Defense Fleet, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. "They're early," said General Peters, checking his watch. Liam nodded. "Aliens don't run on Earth time, sir." News of the approaching aliens had spread 4 months ago. The Vexarians had sent messages ahead, expressing peaceful intentions and a desire to welcome Earth into the galactic community. They were known as mediators and peacekeepers among the stars, a role made possible by their natural telepathic abilities. The ship hovered, then slowly descended. No sound came from its engines, just a gentle push of air as it landed. A door opened in its smooth side, forming a ramp to the ground. "Remember the protocol," General Peters whispered. "No sudden movements, no weapons, and nobody offers their thoughts without direct approval." The first Vexarian appeared at the doorway. It stood nearly 8 feet tall, with blue skin that seemed to shimmer like water. It had 2 arms and 2 legs, but its face was the most alien part. Large, all-black eyes above a small mouth, and 6 small tentacles where a human would have ears. More Vexarians followed, forming a line. The tallest one, wearing elaborate silver robes, stepped forward. "I am High Priest Zoltar," it said in perfect English, its voice deep and smooth. "We bring greetings from the Galactic Council and the Vexarian people." Liam stepped forward as practiced. "I am Captain Liam Carter of the Earth Defense Fleet. On behalf of all humans, we welcome you to Earth." The formal greetings continued for several minutes before the group moved inside the newly built First Contact Center. Under the bright lights of the meeting room, the Vexarians looked even more alien, their skin changing color slightly with each movement. "We have studied your transmissions," Zoltar said once they were seated. "But to truly understand a species, we must understand their minds. It is our way to request a mind reading during first contact." The room grew quiet. This had been discussed in planning meetings, but now that the moment had arrived, Liam could feel the tension. General Peters spoke carefully. "High Priest, we understand this is your custom. However, human minds are private. We have concerns about this process." Zoltar's head tilted slightly. "The process is harmless. I simply touch minds with one of your kind. It causes no pain, leaves no damage. It helps us understand your culture more deeply than words allow." Liam knew what was at stake. Refusing could be seen as hiding something. Not a good start to galactic relations. "I volunteer," Liam said, standing up. Several officers looked at him with surprise. "Captain, that's not necessary," General Peters began. "With respect, sir, it is. I'm the official representative. It should be me." Liam turned to Zoltar. "I accept your request, High Priest." The meeting room was quickly rearranged. Liam sat in a chair facing Zoltar, their knees almost touching. The other humans and Vexarians formed a circle around them. "Your mind is an open book to me," Zoltar said, his voice calm and reassuring. "This will be painless." The High Priest raised his long-fingered hands, placing them near but not touching Liam's temples. The room fell completely silent. Liam could only hear his own breathing. Zoltar's eyes began to glow with a soft inner light. Liam felt a strange sensation, like someone was gently knocking on a door inside his head. And then it happened. The calm ceremony shattered as Zoltar's eyes widened in what could only be described as pure horror. His body stiffened, the tentacles around his face writhing wildly. Then came the scream, a high-pitched, piercing sound that made everyone cover their ears. It wasn't a scream of pain, but something deeper, more primal. A scream of absolute terror. Every Vexarian in the room dropped to their knees, clutching their heads as if sharing Zoltar's distress. The high priest fell backward, still screaming, his body shaking violently. "What happened?" General Peters shouted over the noise. "What did you do?" Liam stood there in shock. "Nothing," he said, staring at the alien priest who wouldn't stop screaming. "I didn't do anything at all." 3 days had passed since the incident. Captain Liam Carter stood at the window of the orbital station, looking down at Earth. The blue planet seemed peaceful from up here, but things were far from peaceful in the diplomatic relations between humans and aliens. The door slid open behind him. Dr. Olivia Grant walked in, her lab coat wrinkled from long hours of work. Dark circles showed under her eyes. "Any change?" Liam asked, though he could guess the answer from her tired face. Olivia shook her head. "Zoltar is still the same, sometimes quiet, sometimes screaming. The other Vexarians can barely stay in the same room with him because they feel his distress through their mental connection." They walked together down the long white corridor to the medical wing. Through a window, they could see High Priest Zoltar lying on a special bed the Vexarians had set up. His blue skin had turned a sickly pale color. His eyes were open but saw nothing. "The Vexarian Council sent a message this morning," Olivia said quietly. "They're suggesting that humans might be psychically toxic." Liam frowned. "Toxic? That's ridiculous. I wasn't even thinking about anything bad when he read my mind." "I believe you, but something in your mind caused this reaction." Olivia led him to a small room with screens showing brain scans. "Look at these. The top one is your brain during the contact. The bottom is Zoltar's." Liam studied the images. His brain showed normal activity, colored areas lighting up in patterns. Zoltar's scan showed something very different. Whole sections glowing bright red, others completely dark. "It's like his brain couldn't process what it found in yours," Olivia explained. "The Vexarians have been reading minds across the galaxy for centuries. Something about human minds is different." A loud alarm suddenly blared through the station. Red lights flashed in the corridor. "Medical emergency in room 7. A voice announced over the speakers. "Security teams report immediately." Room 7 was Zoltar's room. Liam and Olivia ran down the corridor. When they reached the room, they found chaos. Zoltar was awake, sitting up in bed. A young Vexarian aide lay on the floor, shaking and making small crying sounds. 2 human security officers stood with their backs against the wall, looking scared. "What happened?" Liam demanded. One of the officers pointed at the Vexarian on the floor. The aide went to check on the priest. Zoltar grabbed him by the arm. They seemed to connect mentally for a second, and then the aide collapsed. Zoltar looked directly at Liam, his eyes clear for the first time in days. "They contain multitudes," he whispered, his voice rough from screaming. "Contradictions. The darkness is inside all of them." Then his eyes rolled back, and the screaming started again. Later that evening, Liam met with General Peters and the Earth diplomatic team in the station's conference room. "This is getting worse," the general said. "The Vexarian ship has pulled back to the far side of the moon. 3 other alien species have canceled their planned visits to Earth." A woman in a dark suit, Susan Kelly from Earth Intelligence, spoke up. "Our sources say the Galactic Council is holding an emergency meeting. Some species are calling for humans to be classified as a dangerous species." The room fell silent. Being classified as dangerous could mean isolation from galactic trade, technology, and protection. "We need to figure this out fast," General Peters said. "Dr. Grant, what's your professional opinion?" Olivia stood up. "Something in human consciousness is fundamentally different from other intelligent species. Not necessarily bad, just different." But that difference was enough to break the most powerful telepath of the Vexarians. "So what do we do?" Liam asked. "We need to understand what makes us different," Olivia replied. "And we need to find a way to prove we're not dangerous." As they spoke, Monitors around the room displayed news from Earth. People were starting to panic. Some celebrated the idea that human minds were too powerful for aliens to handle. Others feared alien attacks. Liam looked at the images of crowds gathering in cities around the world. "We have 2 weeks at most before the Galactic Council makes their decision," he said. 2 weeks to solve the mystery of the human mind. Outside the window of the station, the stars seemed colder and more distant than ever before. 1 week after the incident, the situation had grown more tense. Earth's governments were preparing for the worst, and people were divided between fear and pride about their supposedly dangerous minds. Captain Liam Carter sat in a small lab on the orbital station. Across from him was Kyra, a young Vexarian telepath who had volunteered for what many of her kind considered a dangerous mission. "Are you sure about this?" Liam asked. Kyra was smaller than Zoltar, her skin a lighter shade of blue. The tentacles around her face moved gently as she nodded. "I am trained in protective mental techniques," she said. Her voice was musical, with strange rises and falls. "I will not delve deep. I will merely skim the surface thoughts and retreat at the first sign of distress." Dr. Olivia Grant checked the monitoring equipment one last time. "We'll be tracking both your brain patterns. At the first sign of trouble, we pull the plug." General Peters watched from behind a glass window, along with representatives from the Vexarian ship. Nobody wanted another disaster, but everyone needed answers. Kyra placed her long fingers near Liam's temples, not touching but hovering an inch away. "Please think of something simple, perhaps a childhood memory." Liam closed his eyes. He thought of fishing with his father on a quiet lake when he was 10 years old. The peace of the water, the excitement when he caught his first fish, the sadness that his mother wasn't there to see it. Kyra's breathing changed. Her fingers trembled slightly, but she didn't pull away. After 30 seconds, she slowly lowered her hands. When she opened her eyes, they were wide with wonder, not terror. You are so complex," she whispered. "Did you see something bad?" Liam asked, worried. "Not bad. Strange." Kyra seemed to search for words. "Your species, you contain opposing thoughts simultaneously. You felt joy about the fish, sadness about your mother, love for your father, and guilt about the pain of the fish, all at the same time." Dr. Grant stepped closer. "Is that unusual?" "For us, it is impossible," Kyra explained. "Vexarians experience one emotion at a time, one thought in a logical sequence. Your minds are fractal, chaotic, beautiful, and terrifying." The realization hit Liam suddenly. It's not that we're evil, it's that our minds don't make sense to them. Dr. Grant nodded slowly as understanding dawned. Human consciousness isn't linear. We can hold contradictory thoughts. We can love and hate someone at the same time. We can know something is harmful but want it anyway. Kyra touched her own head gently. When High Priest Zoltar entered your mind, he expected order. Instead, he found a storm of contradictions. It would be like suddenly hearing 1,000 songs played at once. Later that day, Liam and Dr. Grant presented their findings to the Earth Defense Council. The meeting room was packed with military officers and scientists. The Vexarians and other telepathic species experience thoughts in a linear, logical way, Dr. Grant explained. When they encounter human minds, with our contradictions and complex emotional states, it's like cognitive dissonance to them. General Peters frowned. "So our messy minds broke their priest. That doesn't sound like something that will make them less afraid of us." "Maybe not," Liam said, "but it gives us a starting point. If we understand the problem, we can find a solution." A scientist raised her hand. "Could we teach humans to think more linearly when in contact with telepaths?" Dr. Grant shook her head. "That would be like asking fish not to swim. Our neural pathways have evolved this way over millions of years." "Then what can we do?" the general asked. Liam stood up. "I have an idea. But first, I need to speak with someone who understands the human brain better than anyone. My old friend Dr. Aaron Mitchell, at the Chicago Mural Institute. As the meeting ended, Liam received a message on his comm device. It was from Kyra. "I wish to try again. There is more to learn about your kind." For the first time in a week, Liam felt a spark of hope. If one Vexarian could begin to understand human thought, perhaps others could too. The Chicago Mural Institute stood tall against the morning sky, its glass walls reflecting the clouds. Liam stepped out of the car and looked up at the building where his childhood friend worked. Dr. Aaron Mitchell was waiting in the lobby. At 40, he had a round face with kind eyes behind simple glasses. The two men hugged briefly. "It's been too long," Aaron said, "though I wish we were meeting under better circumstances." "You've heard about what happened?" Liam asked as they walked to the elevator. "Everyone has heard. An alien priest reads a human mind and goes crazy. It's all over the news." Aaron pressed the button for the 12th floor. "Some people are scared. Others are proud that human minds are too much for aliens to handle." The elevator doors opened to a large laboratory filled with advanced equipment. Screens lined the walls, showing colorful brain scans and data streams. "I've been studying human consciousness for 15 years, Aaron said, leading Liam to his office. "But I never thought I'd be comparing it to alien minds." Liam sat down and explained everything. The mind reading, Zoltar's breakdown, and Kara's discovery about how humans think differently. Aaron listened carefully, then turned to his computer. "Let me show you something interesting." He pulled up two brain scans side by side. "This is a human brain processing a complex emotional memory. And this is a simulation of how Vexarian brains work, based on the data you sent me." Liam leaned forward. The human brain scan showed activity spread across many areas, with connections jumping between different sections. The Vexarian model showed organized patterns moving in clear, straight paths. "Humans are possibly unique in the galaxy," Aaron explained, "in our capacity to hold contradictory thoughts. We can love someone and be angry at them simultaneously. We can know something is bad for us and want it anyway. We can believe in fate and free will at the same time." He pointed to the screen. "Our minds are not binary systems. They're more like quantum computers, capable of holding multiple states at once." "So when Zoltar entered my mind," Liam began, "it was like forcing a perfectly orderly being to suddenly experience chaos theory in action," Aaron finished. "The human mind wasn't hostile. It was incomprehensible." Aaron typed on his keyboard, bringing up more images. "Look at these neural patterns. Humans have connections between parts of the brain that might not exist in the same way for Vexarians. Our emotional centers are deeply integrated with our logical thinking." Liam stood up and paced the room. "This explains a lot, but it doesn't solve our problem. The Galactic Council is still considering labeling humans as dangerous." "Maybe there's a way to bridge the gap," Aaron suggested. "If we could create a neural interface that would allow telepathic species to experience human consciousness gradually, like mental training wheels." Liam asked. "Exactly. We expose them to human thought patterns in controlled doses, letting them build tolerance." As they discussed the idea, Aaron's assistant knocked on the door. "Dr. Mitchell, you should see this." She turned on the wall screen, showing a news broadcast. Crowds had gathered in major cities across the world. Some carried signs reading, "Human minds are our defense," and "Keep aliens out of our heads." The reporter spoke over the images. "As tensions grow between Earth and the galactic community, some are suggesting that human consciousness itself might be humanity's greatest weapon." Liam shook his head. "This is exactly what we don't need. If aliens think we're planning to use our minds as weapons, then we need to act fast," Aaron said. He picked up a small device from his desk. "This is a prototype neural interface I've been developing. It's designed to help stroke patients rebuild neural pathways, but with modifications. It could help aliens understand human thinking." Liam finished. "Aaron, how quickly can you adapt this?" with a proper team and resources. Maybe a week. Liam's comm device beeped. It was Dr. Grant. Liam, the Galactic Council has called an emergency session. The Vexarians are formally requesting that humans be quarantined until our mental contamination can be contained. We have 4 days before they vote. Liam looked at Aaron. Make it 3 days. As they began to work, Liam thought about how strange it was. Humans had always worried that aliens would fear their technology or weapons. No one had guessed that what aliens would truly fear was how humans think. The Galactic Council chamber was nothing like Liam had imagined. Instead of a formal meeting room, it was a vast circular space with platforms floating at different heights. Each platform held representatives from different alien species. Some looked almost human, others were completely strange. Floating gas clouds, crystalline structures, and forms Liam couldn't even describe. Earth's delegation was given a small platform near the bottom. Liam stood with Dr. Olivia Grant and 2 government officials, feeling the weight of 7 billion humans on his shoulders. The council elder, a tall, thin being with 4 arms, called the emergency session to order. We gather to address the human mind problem, the elder announced, its voice translated through small devices in the humans' ears. The Vexarians have brought serious concerns. The Vexarian representative, a blue-skinned female who was not Kyra, stood on her platform. 1 month ago, our high priest attempted standard diplomatic mind contact with a human. The result was catastrophic. Zoltar remains damaged. Another of our kind who attempted limited contact confirms that human minds contain dangerous elements. Murmurs spread through the chamber as images of the screaming Zoltar appeared in the air. The human mind appears to be mentally toxic to telepathic species, the Vexarian continued. We request that humans be quarantined until this contamination can be contained. Other species began to speak, many supporting the Vexarians. One fuzzy creature that looked like a walking plant said, "If human thoughts can break the strongest Vexarian mind, what might they do to the rest of us?" Liam felt his heart sink as more voices joined against Earth. Then the elder called on the Earth delegation. Liam stepped forward. "Respected members of the council, we understand your concerns, but there has been a misunderstanding. Human minds are not toxic or dangerous. They're just different." He gestured, and Dr. Grant activated a hologram showing the comparison of human and Vexarian brain patterns. Vexarians and other telepathic species experience thoughts linearly and logically, Liam explained. Human consciousness includes contradictions, subconscious drives, and the capacity to hold opposing ideas simultaneously. When Zoltar entered a human mind, he experienced something his brain wasn't prepared to process, like trying to run a quantum program on an old computer. Some council members seemed interested, but the Vexarian representative shook her head. Regardless of the reason, the effect remains dangerous. Humans cannot control their chaotic thoughts. That's why we've developed a solution, Dr. Grant said, stepping forward. She held up a small silver device. This neural interface would allow telepathic species to experience human consciousness in controlled, graduated exposures, building mental immunity to the complexity of human thought. "You ask us to change," the Vexarian said coldly. "No," Liam replied. "We don't ask you to change who you are. We ask for the chance to help you understand who we are." The chamber filled with discussions in dozens of languages. The council seemed split. "This device is untested," said a reptilian being from a high platform. "We cannot risk more mental damage." "How do we know this is not a trick?" asked another. "Perhaps humans want to use their minds as weapons against us." Liam was about to respond when a new voice spoke. "I will test it." All eyes turned to a small platform that had just risen from below. Kyra stood there, her blue skin glowing under the lights. "Kyra of the Third Vexarian Temple," the elder announced, sounding surprised. "You are not a council member." "No, but I am a witness," Kyra said. Her voice was calm but carried through the chamber. I have experienced human thought in limited form. After my initial shock, I have begun to develop a tolerance for their patterns. She looked directly at Liam. If I can understand them, others can too. I volunteered to undergo the full interface process. The council chamber erupted in shocked voices. A Vexarian volunteering to expose herself to more human thought was unprecedented. The elder raised all four hands for silence. This is unexpected. We will need to consider this proposal carefully. Liam caught Kira's eye across the chamber and nodded his thanks. It wasn't a victory yet, but it was hope, all because one alien had been brave enough to try understanding the human mind instead of fearing it. The council will recess for deliberation, the elder announced. We will reconvene in one standard day. As the platforms began to lower, Liam turned to Dr. Grant. One day to prepare Kyra for what she'll experience, he said. And to convince the galaxy that the way humans think isn't a threat, she added, but a different kind of gift. 3 months after the Galactic Council meeting, Liam stood in the newly built human Vexarian neural lab on the orbital station. The walls were lined with monitoring equipment, and in the center of the room were 2 special chairs facing each other. Are you nervous? Dr. Olivia Grant asked as she checked the settings on the neural interface device one last time. A little, Liam admitted. We've come a long way, but today is the real test. The door slid open, and Kara entered. She looked different now, her movements more fluid, her eyes brighter. For 3 months, she had undergone gradually increasing exposures to human thought patterns through Aaron's neural interface. What had started as brief, simple connections had grown more complex over time. I am ready, Kyra said, her voice confident. Today's demonstration would be historic, the first full, unfiltered mind-sharing between a human and a Vexarian without causing harm, and it would happen in front of the most important audience in the galaxy. On cue, the observation room's wall became transparent, revealing members of the Galactic Council who had traveled to witness this moment. Among them was the council elder and representatives from 12 species. Kyra sat in one chair while Liam took the other. Dr. Grant placed the neural interface headsets on both of them, a web of sensors that would monitor and help stabilize the connection. We'll start slowly, Dr. Grant said. Remember the training. Liam nodded. He had spent weeks learning to guide his thoughts, not to control them. That was impossible for humans, but to introduce them gradually. Beginning neural synchronization, Dr. Grant announced as she activated the system. Liam felt the familiar sensation of someone at the edge of his mind, like a person standing at an open door, but not yet entering. He mentally pictured that door opening wider, inviting Kira in. The observers watched as the monitor showed brain patterns from both beings. Unlike the chaos of the first contact, these patterns began to align, finding harmony without losing their distinct natures. Kyra closed her eyes, her face relaxed. I see. I feel, she said softly. Memories of ocean waves. The taste of something sweet. Sadness for a friend who moved away. Love for family. Fear of failure. Pride in accomplishment. All at once, but now I can navigate the currents. Liam smiled. And I can sense your thoughts too. So clear, so focused. Like a single beam of light compared to our scattered lanterns. For 10 minutes, they remained connected, sharing thoughts and feelings beyond words. When Dr. Grant finally ended the session, both Liam and Kira opened their eyes, smiling. They are not dangerous, Kyra announced to the council observers, standing up with new energy. They are different. Their minds contain wisdom we cannot imagine, and weaknesses we do not suffer. They can lie to themselves. They can believe the impossible. They can hope without reason. And from these strange contradictions comes their remarkable creativity. The council elder stepped forward. What you have demonstrated today changes everything we thought we knew about consciousness in the galaxy. If Vexarians can learn to understand human minds, then perhaps humans can help all telepathic species expand their understanding, Kyra finished. Later that evening, as the council members discussed the implications of what they had witnessed, Liam found Kira standing alone, looking out at the stars. "There's something I didn't tell the council," she said quietly. "What's that?" Liam asked. "The interface changed me too." She turned to face him. "I've begun thinking differently, more complexly. I can hold two opposing thoughts now, at least for a short time." Liam felt a chill of excitement. "You think Vexarians might evolve from contact with human consciousness? Perhaps all species might evolve from understanding each other more deeply," she replied. Their conversation was interrupted by a message on Liam's comm device. It was from the medical wing. "Captain Carter, High Priest Zoltar is awake. He's asking for you, and he said something unusual." "What did he say?" Liam asked. The nurse's voice was confused. "He said, I saw what they could become. Does that make sense to you?" Liam looked at Kira, whose eyes had widened. "Yes," he said. "I think it's starting to." 6 months after first contact, Earth had changed. Ships from a dozen alien species now orbited the planet. Cultural exchanges were happening all over the world, and the first human Vexarian Neural Academy had just opened its doors in Geneva. Liam walked through the Academy's garden, enjoying the mix of earth plants and strange blue flowers from the Vexarian homeworld. The path led him to a quiet corner where a lone figure sat on a stone bench. High Priest Zoltar looked up as Liam approached. The tall Vexarian still moved slowly, but his eyes were clear now, no longer filled with the terror that had haunted him for months. "Captain Carter," Zoltar said, gesturing to the empty space beside him. "Please join me." Liam sat down, studying the alien who had once screamed in horror at the touch of his mind. "How are you feeling?" "Changed," Zoltar replied simply. "In ways I am still understanding." After waking from his catatonic state, Zoltar had spent weeks in recovery, speaking with Kira, and slowly learning about human consciousness through the neural interface. His progress had been remarkable. "I owe you an apology," Zoltar said, his tentacles moving gently with his words. "My reaction was extreme." "You weren't prepared for what you found," Liam said. "No one's blaming you." Zoltar turned to face him directly. "I wasn't prepared, that is true, but not for the reasons you might think." He paused, seeming to search for the right words. "In my species' 10,000 years of reading minds across the galaxy, we've never encountered a consciousness like yours." "Because of our contradictions?" Liam asked. "That was part of it." Zoltar's fingers traced patterns in the air as he spoke. "But what truly overwhelmed me wasn't darkness or chaos in your minds. It was potential. Potential. Your contradictions don't weaken you, they strengthen you," Zoltar explained. "You think the unthinkable. You imagine what does not exist. You believe what cannot be proven." The Vexarian looked up at the sky, where stars were beginning to appear in the early evening. "My species has been telepathic for so long that our thoughts evolved to be clear, ordered, and logical. But we lost something along the way. The creative chaos that drives growth." Liam began to understand. "So your screams weren't from horror. They were from overwhelming revelation," Zoltar finished. "I saw in your kind an evolutionary leap that my species had never conceived possible. A mind unfettered by logical constraints." He touched his own head gently. "The experience broke something in me, but perhaps something that needed breaking." They sat in silence for a moment, watching students walk through the garden, humans and aliens together, learning to bridge the gap between their different forms of consciousness. "There's something I've been curious about," Liam said finally. "When you first woke up, you said, 'I saw what they could become.' What did you mean?" Zoltar's face formed what Liam had learned was a Vexarian smile. "In that first contact with your mind, before I was overwhelmed, I caught a glimpse of possibility. Human minds, with their beautiful chaos, working in harmony with Vexarian clarity. Not just coexisting, but evolving together into something greater than either." He gestured toward a group of Vexarian students who were laughing. Actually laughing, with their human counterparts. It has already begun. Those young ones think differently than I did at their age, and your students are learning our mental discipline. A fair exchange, Liam said, smiling. From his pocket, Zoltar pulled out a small object, a sheet of paper with strange markings. I have been attempting something previously impossible for my species, he said, showing it to Liam. What is it? Liam asked, studying the curious symbols. Poetry, Zoltar replied. Imprecise, emotional, full of contradictions. My first attempts are not good. His tentacles moved in what Liam recognized as embarrassment. But I want to try. As the sun set over the academy, Liam looked at the once terrified priest now struggling to write poetry, and felt a sense of wonder at how far they had come. I still don't fully understand your kind, Zoltar admitted. But I want to. Your minds terrify me. And that, I've learned, is how growth begins. Liam smiled. That sounds almost human. Perhaps, said Zoltar, looking up at the stars that no longer seemed so separate or strange. That is the highest compliment you could give me.